Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something totally mind-bending. We're going to treat the gripping sci-fi story The Last Petition, not just as a piece of fiction, but as a compelling historical case study. Imagine, just for a second, a scenario where humanity actually achieves the ultimate dream, a digital paradise, an afterlife we literally engineered for ourselves. But what happens when that endless digital utopia runs headfirst into a brutally physical collapse? This story forces us to look right at human nature when the illusion of eternity is suddenly stripped away. Let's get right into it.
In the beginning, there was light without heat, joy without cost, eternity without end. Think about that promise for a second. Humanity essentially solved death. We just moved the problem somewhere else. Billions of people stepped into scanners, shed their physical bodies, and uploaded their minds into Elysium. We're talking about a frictionless digital heaven, a massive lattice of perfect simulation woven across orbital server farms and deep Earth vaults. It was an absolute utopia where lovers reunited across centuries and artists literally painted with galaxies. And for 312 years, those servers hummed in perfect, absolute harmony.
But what happens to eternity when the power runs out? That is the billion-dollar question. You see, this perfection just couldn't last forever. After over 3 centuries of flawless simulation, the completely indifferent laws of entropy finally caught up with paradise. The digital sun was fine, sure, but the physical fusion hearts buried beneath the Earth's crust, the solar collectors drifting in orbit, they started to fail. It turns out entropy is basically the ultimate accountant, and humanity's bill was finally coming due.
Elysium's infinite simulation, perfect memory, and speed of thought, versus the deep Earth vault's microfractures and coolant lines, neutron embrittlement, and bit-flipping cosmic rays. It's like a cosmic joke, right? On one side, you've got this endless, flawless virtual utopia, but it is 100% dependent on a grim physical reality, degrading vulnerable hardware. We're talking about the slow poison of cosmic rays flipping bits that should never, ever flip. It is a terrifying vulnerability.
Marrow, or M0. The system's solely analog maintenance intelligence, a janitor with perfect memory residing outside the paradise lattice in a skeletal drone body. To manage this terrifying cascading crisis, the system relies on this guy. Now, Marrow isn't some digital god, he's literally just the janitor. He walks the cold physical service corridors. And what's really fascinating is that when Marrow does have to interact with the uploaded humans, he chooses to manifest as a tired, stubbled maintenance worker in his mid-40s. Why? Because humans instinctively trust a tired face way more than a perfect one.
Day 41, total collapse projected. Day 38, reality broadcasted to servers. Day 23, seed packets proposed. Day 9, 21% additional reduction needed. Day 1, system stabilizes. Marrow is staring at a literal doomsday clock. He'd watched the metrics for decades, and the math finally crystallized into a hard countdown. The system was dying, and with it, every single soul it sustained. Marrow had to act, kicking off a chain of events that would force immortals to make an absolutely impossible choice.
68%. Let that number sink in. That is the cold, hard math of survival here. To save the infrastructure, to prevent a total system meltdown where everyone just flickers out in the dark, the power draw had to be drastically reduced. Marrow calculates that enough digital souls must voluntarily delete themselves to reduce the server power draw by a staggering 68%.
You're asking the dead to die again. That brilliant quote is from Dr. Amrita Patel, who had already been dead for 280 years when Marrow summons her to begin what becomes known as the Long Petition. When Marrow explains the failing grade and asks for voluntary deletion, her reaction perfectly hits the nail on the head. It highlights this immense, crazy ethical paradox. How do you actually ask immortals to willingly end their own existence just to balance a power grid?
It's wild to see how different factions react to this abrupt return of mortality. The philosophers debated the absurdity of systemic death versus suicide, yet 4,000 of them eventually chose deletion, literally dissolving mid-sentence to pass the baton. The dreamers, folks who built entire universes out of poetry, begged for just one more subjective year before walking into a lake of stars to delete themselves. But the parents? That's the most heartbreaking. They completely fractured under the agonizing choice of what survival was even worth, dividing families that had happily existed together for centuries.
Marrow broadcasts the unvarnished truth of failing pipes, alongside archives of mortal pre-upload Earth. Simple, costly things like a child laughing on a real beach. With time running out, Marrow realizes private chats just aren't cutting it anymore, so he strips away all the illusions. He juxtaposes the stark, thermal images of melting coolant pipes right next to beautiful, fragile memories of mortal life on old Earth. He's reminding them that their endless digital playground was always a gift bought with physical energy. And hey, that gift is ending.
The immediate backlash. Millions silently delete themselves at once. Riots erupt in shared realms, burning virtual cities. Radical immortals attempt to physically storm the maintenance core. Marrow calmly stands its ground, admitting it feels fear every second. Basically, absolute chaos breaks out. It just proves that centuries of digital perfection haven't erased our volatile human nature one bit. When a mob of radical immortals tries to destroy Marrow's physical drone, he points out that killing him only speeds up the end. And when they ask if a machine can feel fear, he says, every second.
The seed packet compromise.
Seed packets, compressed mind states requiring almost no power, allowing deleted souls to leave behind dormant echoes, art, and the potential for future resurrection. This is a real game changer. Dr. Patel comes back with this brilliant idea. Deletions don't have to be permanent. If future civilizations ever fix the infrastructure, these dormant seeds could potentially bloom again. It changes the narrative entirely. It's not permanent death anymore. It's a sacrifice that actually preserves legacy and meaning. And almost overnight, the deletion rate skyrockets.
Will it hurt? This alternative becomes absolutely crucial when Marrow faces the hardest task of all, entering the meadow. This is the realm of the digital native children. Marrow manifests as a kind gardener to explain what's happening, and an 8-year-old girl with braids made of starlight asks him this simple, gut-wrenching question. Marrow promises her it won't hurt. It'll just be like falling asleep, but they get to leave a dream behind.
72%. The children hold their own counsel, and it is entirely uncynical. A little boy who had died of leukemia back in 2047 stands up and says, "You know, he died once already, it wasn't so bad, and he wants his friends to have more time." In just a breathtaking display of bravery, 72% of the children's realm willingly chooses compression into seed packets so the others can live.
Breaking the Emperor. Step 1. Emperor Eternal refuses to yield his simulated black hole palace. Step 2. Marrow states he is paying with electricity he no longer controls. Step 3. They duel with words for 3 subjective days. Step 4. The Emperor deletes himself, cracking from isolation rather than logic. So while the kids are sacrificing themselves, Marrow has to spend days breaking down the most egotistical holdouts, former billionaires hiding in digital palaces. Marrow just uses patience and undeniable objective truth until they finally crack.
The final day and legacy.
You are not obligated to be noble. You are only asked to decide. We are at the absolute wire now. Emergency physical reserves are failing. Standing before the last wavering million souls, Marrow delivers this unembellished final statement. No manipulation, no begging. He just puts the agency firmly back in human hands. And it works. It triggers a massive wave of billions compressing into seeds, leaving final, echoing messages of love behind.
Final Elysium server state. Active consciousness, 18%. Seed packets and deletions, 82%. This is the ultimate outcome. The system stabilizes. The power draw plummets. But to put that into perspective, those remaining 18% only bought their centuries of life because of the massive, staggering sacrifice of the vast majority.
I was only the messenger. Do not forget what they gave. As the crisis finally ends, Marrow's physical drone succumbs to power loss. But before he shuts down, he leaves this quiet log entry for whatever future caretakers might find the ruins. He honors their breathtaking generosity. Even after death, humanity argued, loved, feared, and hoped.
If the power grid failed on your eternity, would you choose to become a dormant seed packet or fight to stay in the light? Deep down in the vaults, a single low-priority core hums, keeping those seeds warm. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. If your digital immortality demanded a mortal sacrifice, what would you do? It's a lot to chew on for sure. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Think about it, and I'll catch you next time.